Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. I know everyone's made, it hasn't been easy to get here. I really, from my experiences with seminars, I wanted to provide an experience that you'll never forget. And I think doing it here is definitely one way of creating that memory. I didn't want to have a regular seminar in a hotel. I could have. I really think 80% of this whole apartment business is really just it's 20% is mechanics and 80% is just psychological. So if I can have you guys and girls here for the next 2 or 3 days with me, that's really one of the goals that I want to accomplish together, because quite frankly, I can teach you how to run an apartment building in 1 hour, and we're going to spend 3 days doing it. So you can tell where a lot of our time is going to be spent, which is just getting you folks over your hurdles on why you haven't taken that next leap in your life or the next step. Why haven't you bought that single-family house, or why haven't you bought an apartment building? I'm going to argue up here that apartment buildings are the way to go. As you all know, I own 102 single-family houses, and I kind of learned the hard way. I'm going to try not to get ahead of myself during the presentation and stick with the PowerPoint. And really important over the next 2 or 3 days, if you're not getting something, please let me know, ask the question. I'm going at this full force, so I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you folks you may or may not know right away, but we're going to keep going. If you have a question about a term or something, and if we don't have enough time to really explain the term, we will get to the term over the next few days. But we're going to do some really in-depth case studies on, I think, 3 or 4 apartment buildings. And everything that had to do with that closing and purchase and running the building are inside these manuals. And buying an apartment building, it's not a simple art. So each purchase is a little bit different. So in some of the case studies, there'll be an appraisal, and we'll talk about how the appraiser came up with the value and which cost approach he used. In some case studies, there might be environmental, or I put some balance sheets in, or some financials, profit and losses. So I kind of spread it out a little, and seeing how we are going with time, we'll spend more time on particular case studies than others. So with that being said, I really honor you folks, and I have this opportunity to really make a change in everyone's life here. I think you get that feeling from me when you've heard me speak in the past. It's really not about money that I'm up here. I'm kind of done. If I wanted to call it quits, I could just live off the cash flow of my properties. Yes, I want more for me and my family, but this is a wonderful way to go too. And it's going to become one of my sole purposes in life that every single person in this room either buys an apartment building by themselves or joins a deal to buy an apartment building and truly learns what it's like to get this cash flow, because we just weren't taught it. We just weren't taught it. We were, the 401k or your job or just going to school. It behooves me why we didn't spend more time studying, creating and buying appreciating assets that kick off cash flow. Because if you can just collect a certain amount of properties every year as you get older, the question is, how many properties do you need? So I'm 40 years old. I started when I was 25 years old, and I had X amount of properties. You'd be done. So another purpose why we're here today is to say, okay, how do we make up for lost time? All right, my IRA got destroyed, my 401k got destroyed, or I made some bad investment decisions. I sold everything on the bottom in 2008, and I watched it go up 75% in 2009. Let's make up for lost time. And so what I want to bring to you folks this weekend is we're going to talk about some really good opportunities, some opportunities that I took advantage of, some chances that I took. There's plenty of them out there. So we're going to try to discover or undiscover how to find these secrets, how to buy these apartment buildings. I'm going to be bringing you over the next few days. I'm going to have Jordan Emmett from Tarantino Properties come on in and talk to you folks, because I know a lot of you folks have questions on, well, how do I really establish a relationship with a commercial real estate broker? I'm also going to bring in a banker that did the loan on this building. I'm going to bring in Rick from Suncoast Plumbing, and he's going to tell you the 3 to 5 things to look out for right away when you buy an apartment building. And I'm going to bring in a few more people, and I think you all know that we are going to go to this closing to buy Angel Ridge Apartments at the closing's at 4:30 today. So I thought it'd be a pretty cool. Idea if you guys can see what it's like to buy this building. You all saw us working on it for the last 2 to 4 weeks. We're going to go there. We're going to do the closing at Stewart Title at the end of the day and buy an apartment building. Some of you here invested in it. Some of you didn't, and that's fine. Because if you just start getting used to this environment and used to this language, and you start retraining yourself how to think differently and how to create your own investments and not wait around for someone else to sell you something, that's fine. So whenever you're ready, that's fine. But there's really no reason why you don't start buying apartment buildings sooner than later. It's just a perfect storm out there right now. So why don't we move on? We're going to start with Module 1. It's not in your book. A lot of this presentation is going to be coming off of the PowerPoint. Please, open dialogue, lots of questions, and lots of stories. So why apartment buildings are the ideal wealth builder? Well, they're really the ideal wealth builder because, like I said, if you can buy an asset that appreciates in value over time and kicks off cash flow, that's an incredible investment. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. I'll probably say it 10,000 times this weekend. There's no reason why you should buy an investment that doesn't kick off cash flow. Why are you waiting around for your retirement at, 65, and with all those successful investments you're supposed to have made in your 401k and your retirement plans? And does anyone really have a plan on what those retirement plans are going to be paying them? What are they going to be yielding them? These ideas, they weren't thought through, these ideas, and you can with apartment buildings, because you get to the point where you say to yourself, okay, my lifestyle costs $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000, and by the end of this weekend, we'll figure out how many buildings you want to buy to back into that number. So you'll have a plan. I get this question a lot. So Alan, what kind of money can I make in apartment buildings? And a lot of it's going to depend on you. Again, we're out here in Pasadena, Texas right now. This is your typical Class C property, which we'll define more in the seminar, but basically Class C properties get around 60 to 80 cents a square foot. I think it's a great entry point to get involved in apartment buildings, Class C. Because Class B, more expensive, more new, and Class A, built within the last 10 years, very expensive. It's kind of a life insurance REIT game, and we'll talk more about that in the seminar as well. So who do you need on your team to make all this happen? You do need a team. I don't want to sound cliche. We hear that a lot. It's not a single-family house business anymore. A lot of you might be accustomed to doing things by yourself. We're going to go more into that, who you need on your team, and we're going to talk more about advantages of owning apartment buildings and the disadvantages of owning single-family houses. One thing you folks are going to learn a lot about me. I'm concerned about everybody's future. I'm concerned about my future. I'm concerned about your future. I'm concerned about the way things are going in our government and the way money is being spent. I think we're headed for some serious inflation here over the next 5 or 10 years. So throughout the weekend, we're going to be talking about how do you protect yourself in an inflationary environment. Why would you just, why would you just leave your bank accounts out there with no safety nets? So maybe we'll talk more about the devaluation of the dollar. I'm a big gold and silver fan, and we'll make some analogies between gold and silver and apartment buildings and where to park your money for inflationary hedges. And maybe some of you really have aspirations that you want to own a portfolio of apartments. You need $20,000 a month net income coming in, and how many buildings that will take. So your ticket to cash flowing your dreams. I I came up with this plan around 10 years ago, and it came into realization over the last few years where I really saw the cash flow coming in from the apartment buildings. A lot of you guys know the story, how I got involved with single-family houses, and it was really just anywhere from like $50 to $150 a house, and I kept buying them, and I kept buying into the formula that, yeah, you can retire in single-family houses. I read every single book out there. I went to every single seminar out there, and I understood one formula. I followed the formula. I ended up with 102 houses, and I still had that moment in time where I just said, this isn't working. There's just no way I'm going to be able to retire on 102 houses. So I parlayed into apartment buildings. So I meet a lot of people that start buying houses, and I get really excited when they tell me they own more than one or two, because that tells me that if you own more than 2 houses, you can do apartment buildings. If you don't own any houses, you can do apartment buildings, but knowing that you took the action, you invested your time, you can do the same thing with apartment buildings. Now, we're going to go to a closing later on this afternoon on apartment buildings. No different than a single-family house. It'll probably take 20 minutes. It's more or less the same paperwork, and literally just has one more zero on everything. That's it. One apartment deal can change your life. One apartment deal can change your life, and we're going to go into a case study in a second. But this story, a broker of mine, Scott, came over to my house, told me that he just got off the phone from a phone call from a bank in Minnesota. This bank in Minnesota just took back a property in Lake Jackson, Texas. And they lent it to someone who just, things didn't work out. They needed to get that deal really quick. So I drove over to Lake Jackson, and Scott, the broker, looked at me and said, Alan, I know you just bought a 162-unit building, but this 72-unit building will make you more money than 162 units because you're going to buy it so cheap, and it's a great market. It's a Class C building, but it's a B class inside. And I remember, I'm up on this roof with Scott, and I like to be able to really drive like 20, 30 miles away from my house to get to my investments. This particular investment was, 50 to 75 miles away from me. I was concerned. I never bought anything that far away. Scott was right. Unbelievable. First month, whatever, it was like $10,000. I had to stabilize it. $15,000 a month. I mean, one transaction. But before we get to that one transaction, let me just introduce myself one more time. So that's my wife, Takako, and my son, Jake. And a lot of you folks know my story, how I worked in the World Trade Center, and I left 12 hours before the towers fell. I was away in Portland on a business trip, and I really had 2 turning points in my life. The first turning point was in that hotel room when I realized that everything I was taught and learned and everything that I was worried about and all the bills and all the money and watching those towers fall and my teammates dying, it all became meaningless to me. So I decided I was going to rewrite my life. And that week I came up with a plan how I was going to start my own business, how I was going to have the child that we thought we couldn't afford, and more importantly, how I was going to start buying real estate. And I did those 3 things, and 4 years later, when my son had turned around to me basically and said, Daddy, I'll see you next week, on a Sunday night, I realized that I was working too hard and I wasn't around enough. I was having a lot of success with one of my businesses, and it was time to make another change. So that's when I went from 30, 40, 50 houses to 50, 60 to 102 houses. But then when I got to around 102 houses, I was concerned for our future. Whatever it was, I know it sounds like a lot of money to some people, $10,000, $15,000 a month. It wasn't keeping up with my lifestyle, and I made more money in the corporate world. I didn't want to go back into the corporate world. So I had that aha moment where, okay, it's time to start buying apartment buildings, and if the apartment buildings don't work, well then, I might have to go back to the corporate world. So I really felt my back to the wall, and I had to make it work. So I forced myself to start buying apartment buildings. We're here at the Villas of Pasadena right now, And this was the first apartment building that I bought. So what is apartment investing? I came from a business that I started, and it was open 24 hours a day. And I was used to waking up in the morning and actually turning my computer on to see how much money I made. So I knew that I needed another business just like that. And it turned out that the apartment business was just like that, because you're making money 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And those are the businesses that we need in our lives. Because if you don't have those in your life right now, you're following an old formula, an old plan. You're following something that you learned in the past. You're not going to be able to keep up with the rate of inflation. You're not going to be able to keep up with the cost of living, food inflation, you name it. You're just not going to be able to keep up with it. So whatever you do this weekend, if you can walk away with just a few ideas, whatever business you decide to go into, make sure that it's open 24/7. Apartment buildings, easy entry. It's just easy entry. I know a lot of you folks out here are saying, who's going to take me serious? How am I going to borrow the funds? And we're going to talk about all that stuff this weekend. But you know you can do it with single-family houses with a little hard work. You know you can borrow probably, you put 20, 30% down, you can borrow 60, 70, 80% of the purchase price. You know you can do it. Absolutely. This particular building, I remember when I was refinancing out the owner that sold it to me, the bank only wanted to lend me 75% to the appraised value. They asked me to come to a closing with $100,000. I just said no way. So then they bumped it to 80% LTV, loan to value, and I didn't have to bring anything. So take control of your own destinies. Don't just take what they give you. You can get it done. 80%. I mean, I was getting an 80% LTV when I'm hearing other people getting 60% and coming to the closing table with hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't have to do it. Take control of your own destiny. Tell them the way you're going to do it, or go find another bank. We've heard this before, and it's true, that most of the most wealthiest people in the United States own real estate. And let me tell you why. Because they park their money in real estate. They just park their money. You folks out here, you probably leave all your money in your checking account, your savings account, or something that doesn't really make you anything. We're going to talk more about how to protect yourself, but this is definitely one way. The way I park my money in single-family houses, I park my money in apartment buildings, and I park my money in gold and silver. If I want my money back, I refinance. We're really all here for the same reason, which is, how do you raise the quality of your living? And by Sunday night, I really want you to have a clear-cut goal, plan, how you're going to do it. If it's going to be a 34-unit building, a 76-unit building, 162, or you want to join a partnership, have a plan. Try it once. You'll never go back. You'll stop using your 401k. You'll stop using your IRA. Just have a plan, make a plan, and we will make those plans before we leave. Okay, so John F. Kennedy, a rising tide lifts all boats. Let me tell you why I really like this. Because right now we're sitting in the middle of a perfect storm for apartment investing. It's just perfect right now. So we all have concerns where we are in the economy. Let's talk about growth and population. Are we really shrinking? So we have like 250 million people here in the United States. A lot more unaccounted for. We're headed to 300 million. Is India not growing? Is China not growing? Is Brazil not growing? Everyone needs a place to live. So I'm not here saying let's reinvent the wheel. Just let's take an old idea and do the same thing and make it better. Is there a profession that's older than renting out a room? No one tell me what they Come on, Mira, I knew you wanted to say it. Okay, so maybe renting out a room is the second oldest profession to mankind.
I wouldn't know, okay?
All right. So, okay. I'll have to rewrite that. Yeah, interest rates. I mean, interest rates, unbelievable. It's just absolutely unbelievable. If we were sitting in an interest rate environment where maybe, you know, it was 10% or 15% or 18%, we'd really have to take a hard look if we were doing the right thing here. But I got to tell you something. I have some mortgages low. It's like a half a point above prime, which is like 1.75%. So, but don't get me. I mean, for apartment buildings, commercial money, you're going to be looking at 6, 7, 8%, depending on who you get it from. But I mean, that's the sweet spot. You're right there. So you have an explosion in population. You have really low interest rates, and we're in a recession. It's never been a better time to buy an apartment building. I hate to say it, that's crashing and burning with cash flow. There's so many apartment buildings out there right now that are just, they're burning. I mean, it takes a long time to build things up, but when they're crashing and burning, I mean, you can just make money right away. Right away. And that's what I'm doing, that's why I'm here, and that's what the point I want you all to leave with. You don't have to wait 5 or 10 years to find your perfect investment. We can find it right away. Cash flow your dreams. I mean, that's definitely one of my dreams. I'm actually in the process of purchasing a dream like that right now. And when I say purchasing for me, I'm talking about picking out an apartment building that's going to pay for it. You know, I'm not going to sit around and say, oh, I have this goal and I think it's $2.5 million and then I can relax. That's the problem with a lot of people right now. Everyone has these high standards of where they want to be, but no one knows really what that number is. Sally, do you have a number? You don't have to answer. I mean, does anyone, I mean, is it $1 million? I used to think it was $1 million for me. I'll tell you a quick story.
$1 million a year?
No, I mean, just in savings. And yeah, you were more realistic than me. You know? So, I mean, when my wife and I had been together for around 20 years, so I always wanted to be a responsible parent planner. So I had this idea I needed $50,000 in the bank before I had a child. And then I bumped it up to $250,000. And then I even had the nerve to bump it up to $500,000 in the bank. And you know, September 11th happened to me, and none of that mattered. So if you know what you need, if you know how much money you need to buy an asset, then figure out how to cash flow it. You want to live in $1 million house? You're going to borrow money at 7%, $70,000 a year divided by 12. What is that, like $5,600 a month? I can show you how to make $5,600 a month very easily. Okay, here is an acronym that I'd like you all to remember, IDEAL. Why apartment buildings are ideal wealth builders. I is for income, right? You're buying an asset, you're going to have income coming in. D is for depreciation. I hope we get to spend time talking about depreciation and the advantages, because I know everyone here has a W-2 income or a K-1 distribution, and oh, it's so powerful. If you can take depreciation from real estate and balance it against W-2 income, that's really helped me get to where I am today. I mean, I was in check for so many years. We'll talk more about this later, but I mean, if you had a few $100,000 in income, earned income, and you had a few $100,000 in losses, I mean, you're saving probably 35% on that, so you're probably saving $100,000 just on that. And then you ask yourself, how much would you have had made to net another $100,000? You could be at $500,000 already. I had to stop working because my income kept rising. I couldn't keep up with my income. And it was just taking too much time, and the depreciation was so much more valuable, and the time that I was saving. It was really the time that I saved in the real estate business that you couldn't put a price on it. $500,000, $750,000, $1 million a year. You really do get to a point in your life where you can't put a price on it, especially when you're staring right at the answer, which is apartment buildings. Equity. Equity, E for equity. Make sure you buy it cheap. We're headed over to go buy Angel Ridge. The sales price is $720,000. We haven't had a full blown out appraisal on it yet, but HCAD has it down for around $3.4 million. There's massive equity in that deal, without a doubt, massive equity. So you want to capture the equity, and of course you'll make an investment in that property with your own money, so you'll have that in there as well, and that's your equity as well. Appreciation. We don't hear about it anymore, but that's because people are paying too much for their properties. Properties appreciate, and even if it didn't, say you bought something and it didn't technically appreciate in 2011, well, you might have double appreciation in 2012 or 2013. So look at it over 5 or 10 years, because we've all seen real estate prices run. So people talk about appreciation like 3, 4, 5% a year. Okay, so if you're flat one year at 0%, and why can't you have 5 or 6% the next year? You can. Don't try to time this market. Real estate's proven itself. And leverage. Leverage, 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 leverage. You get to retire on someone else's money. No one taught you that. You get to retire on someone else's debt. Leverage. I give you $1, and you're going to lend me 4 or 5 more. Leverage. And you're going to make money on those 4 or 5 extra dollars. It's that simple. So that's your ideal investment. I get this question a lot. Okay, Alan, what kind of money can I make in real estate? And it's just so hard to give them a direct answer, but I'm gonna try right now. C-class properties. I wouldn't do a deal that didn't make $75 a door minimum. So start doing the math. Just to say you want to buy a 100-unit building, and I'm telling you not to get involved in a deal that doesn't clear $75 a door, you're going to make $7,500. We'll definitely go into further explanation about how do you get to $75 a door throughout the next few days. Huge equity capture. That's why I can sit up here and say, I guarantee you're going to make X amount of dollars with me over the next year, because we're not going to do any deals that don't capture equity. And then you have to ask yourself, how much do you want to make? If you need $10,000 a year to retire on, well, then let's figure out how many $75 doors you need to buy. Is it, 2 50-unit buildings, one 100-unit building, or you want to be in a partnership of 500 units and you own 20% of that partnership? Stuff like that. Start thinking out of the box. Passive or active investors, we'll just go over that one time here. Passive investor is, okay, Alan, sounds like you know what you're doing. I don't have time for this. My time is best utilized being a doctor or being a lawyer or running my business. I want to be passive. Just take my money. I'm going to stop investing in my 401k. I'm going to stop investing in the stock market, in the commodity market. Just take my money. You're a passive investor. Other people want to be active. It's great. Active investor, you're actively making income. Passive and active. When you're making decisions, if you want to be active in the apartment business, ask yourself, okay, well, how much money do I really need to make, and do I want to be there every day? Do I want to manage the property? When I first bought this one, I was really gung-ho. I didn't realize that the property manager here, it wasn't a company, it was just Martha was her name. I didn't realize she couldn't work 7 days a week. I never took that into account, that we couldn't keep this place open 7 days a week, so I found myself with a job. I came in 3 or 4 days a week because it didn't warrant paying 2 property managers. I couldn't afford it. So other new owners, if you don't pay a property manager, you'll save $30,000 or $40,000 a year. So you can add that to your bottom line if you want to buy an apartment building and you have to make X amount of dollars. If you want to run it yourself, you can make an extra $30,000, $40,000 a year if you're looking for a career. I'm not advocating it, but it's a great way of learning the business. Because by me spending 6 to 12 months here, I mean, my heart and soul was being poured into this place. I just got such a better understanding. I mean, just simple things. I remember when I first bought this property, I'd walk out to see how the rehab was going. and I'd spend time helping them with the rehab, and I'd come back into the leasing office only to realize that I just missed 15 phone calls. You don't want to miss 15 phone calls when you don't have a full building. And so then I got Vonage. I don't know if anyone knows what Vonage is here, but we'll talk about it later. But more or less makes it really easy to forward a phone call to your cell phone. So then I never missed a phone call again. I could just pick up my cell phone and say, the Villas of Pasadena, can I help you? Or if I was driving over here and I was late or I was in traffic, Villas of Pasadena, can I help you? Because, I mean, those incoming phone calls are worth a lot more than the outgoing phone calls. So to manage or not to manage, some people just want to hire property management companies. We'll talk more about this during the weekend as well. I've started using property management companies. I have a very close relationship with my property manager. And do you want to be a portfolio investor? I hope a lot of you do. I mean, why not get 5 or 10 buildings? Why not? Who said you can't? No competition. No one else is doing it. I was thinking maybe that should be the cover of the program. That's my Monopoly kit with my son. We use those to I don't know if you guys have seen the video. I'll just pull this out anyway. Hopefully I don't break it. These are the scanning devices for checks. So a tenant brings a check in the office, and you run it, and you're done. That's it. I've never, in probably 3 years now, got a phone call from the bank that said there's a problem. There's an electronic image taken of it. It goes right to my bookkeeper. It goes right to the bank. It's in QuickBooks. This is just another way of running your business efficiently, and we'll talk more about it during the next few days. There's no other way of doing it. You buy an apartment building, you get a bank scanner. Who do you need on your team? The A team. You do. You need brokers. I know a lot of us want to do it all by ourselves, but I'm telling you right now, go get yourself a good broker. I owned a brokerage shop for 10 years, and I've been a stockbroker, a commodity broker for probably almost 20 years. There's value in using a broker, so make sure you extract that value from that individual who's going to represent you. You're just not going to be a speed dial on his phone. I have a good one coming this afternoon that we can all ask questions. But my broker, you're all welcome to use him here in town, but maybe it doesn't fit your personality. Or maybe you feel like maybe he's going to show me all the good deals and not you. So you find what you're looking for. There's plenty of brokers out there. We all know that's how a broker gets paid, right? They only get paid when they close deals. And get a smart one. They make them run all the numbers. I know people get caught up on pro formas and P&L and how do you evaluate this thing. They'll do it all for you. They'll do it all for you. And I'm going to show you how to do it as well. But put them to work. They get a good 3 to 6% commission on the sales price of the property. Lender. Start lining up your lenders. I know this is a hurdle for a lot of people. It doesn't have to be a hurdle anymore. They're looking for you. We're back, okay? The world is lending money again. The machine's working. Go meet a banker. Walk into a banker. Introduce yourself. Maybe you have your resume ready. Tell them what you want to do. We're going to have a banker come in tomorrow as well. We can all ask questions about the banker, like I said, who financed this property. General contractor, I'll help you. Go find a general contractor. So when you find a property, you can send him over there and ask him for his opinion. And it doesn't even just have to be a general contractor. You can call a few tradesmen up and send them over to the property. They'll be more than happy to give you a free estimate. And this is a great way of building a budget for the property you're about to buy. That's what I did here. And Angel Ridge, we had, last month, we had a bunch of vendors show up. So now I know what the flooring is going to cost, and I know I think I know what the electricity, the electrical problems or the natural gas problems are going to cost. Rick is going to be here. He just did a whole plumbing inspection on Angel Ridge, and he's going to be telling us about his findings tomorrow. So stuff like that. property manager. Find the property manager, and unless you tell me that you really want to be the one that runs your property. I can recommend some good property management companies to you. Yeah. Attorney. You're going to need an attorney. You're absolutely going to need an attorney. It's not like the single-family house business. I can't even tell you how many emails go back and forth between the buyer and the seller's attorneys right before you buy an apartment building. A good mortgage broker. I've been, for the market we're in and where we're at right now, I haven't been using a mortgage broker. But if you don't have the time and you haven't created the relationship with the banker, go meet a mortgage broker because they're experts. They know who's lending. Sometimes I have to go to one bank and figure, just from my conversation, I'll just figure out that they're not lending money, and then I'll go over to the next bank. You know, if you walk into a bank and you say, I can buy $1 for 50 cents, and they don't want to lend you $1 to buy something for 50 cents, or they don't want to help you buy that, leave. Just leave. You're wasting your time. They don't want to lend money right now. Hey, this is a great team member to have. If you folks can have now, I would highly suggest it. A virtual assistant. New ideas. A lot of us weren't able to take advantage of these ideas, but I can tell you that CEOs and Fortune 500 companies have been using virtual assistants for a very, very long time. And thanks to the internet age, we can all use them. And let me explain to you how I use my virtual assistant. She lives in England. And I've been using this particular one. Her name's Christine. I've been using her for, I think, 3 years now. She runs my whole single-family house portfolio, 102 houses. She calls into my cell phone around 5 times a day, calls all the tenants, calls all the contractors, sets up all the appointments to fix things. Everything. She helps me in my personal life. If I need to send flowers, or you name it, everything. She'll set appointments up for me. If I can't make something, it's easier for me just to text it to her. Text goes to England, and then she calls over here. We're doing it all over the internet. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything. So, and what does a virtual assistant cost? Anywhere from $1 to whatever you want to pay. We have a special deal worked out. It's very, very affordable. Matter of fact, these are the things that concern me about the future of where we're headed. I give you another example. I just created some really complicated spreadsheets, and I didn't have time to do them, and I would have had to pay someone a lot of money here to do that for me. And I hired this guy, his name's Reedy, out of Pakistan on elance.com for $1.56 an hour.
What is that,
elance.com. I think we'll go into that too. These people are just, you can just jump on these websites, put up your job, and either say what you want to pay, or people will tell you what they charge. So,
and that's the website you have in
elance.com. That's a good one. Yes. Again, that's why I'm so passionate about the apartment buildings, because it's just stuff like that that scares me about our future and why you need this extra cash flow in your life. And you're going to need a bookkeeper. You might want to do it yourself in the beginning, but every Wednesday at approximately 11 o'clock, wherever I am in this world, I try to meet my bookkeeper, and I sign all my checks, and I look at all the bills. And that's how you really keep your pulse on your business. That's the most time I actually put into my business, is when I go visit her. So today's real estate market and where we're at. The days of flipping are over. I don't know if you folks were kind of attracted to real estate because you heard about all the quick money you can make. You've heard about people quitting their jobs and flipping a house for $20,000 or $30,000, and I kind of felt like I was a victim of that because they were flipping those houses for me. They were charging me $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, and I was paying, and I knew they were kind of laughing, saying, "Oh yeah, I just made $5,000 off of Alan," but I got to tell you something. A lot of those people just created another job for themselves. So that's not what we want to do with apartment buildings. it's not my intention of why I'm up here teaching you folks. I'm teaching you about the cash flow and enjoying your lifestyle and living a healthy life. So, you know, I really hope you don't make a job out of this and that you create systems and you just watch the systems and you watch your apartment buildings make money. So most successful real estate entrepreneurs were the ones that concentrated on building massive passive income and captured huge amounts of equity. So true, so true. All those guys that flipped to me are burnt out of the business, wish they never sold a single family house, or wish they never flipped an apartment building. You put so much time and effort into finding something that you want to hold and own. How many of those do you think you're going to find in your life? So why are you just going to flip it out? I would suggest holding on to it. So some of the doom and gloom. Let's just talk about some of the doom and gloom out there right now with what's happening with foreclosures and the market that we find ourselves in and the economy. I mean, what are we at, like 10% unemployment? And how much is that really counting people that are off of unemployment? The foreclosures right now really are worse than they've ever been. And you know, there are a lot of properties out there right now that the banks just don't want to take back. And the real reason why they don't want to take them back is because they're just the lenders. They don't want to be responsible for holding the property and paying the fines and paying the taxes. So they're just going to slowly keep pushing out those foreclosures to the market. And in doing so, it depresses housing prices. A lot of people are afraid to buy houses because they think the market's getting worse. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? Someone help me.
Apartments.
Thank you. They're going to move to apartments. They're going to move to apartments. And, you know, you also have people moving all over for work right now. They're not going to go buy a house. They're going to move into an apartment. Another reason why we should be buying apartment buildings right now. Let's see here. All right, this is the part that I really like about, you know, why it's a fantastic time to be buying. It's because trillions of dollars literally need to be refinanced in apartment buildings right now. And this is one way I'm getting my apartment buildings right now. We've had people buying apartment buildings 5 years ago, but their financing is up. And they don't know how to get refinanced. And it's not that they can't get refinanced. They can't get refinanced at the price they paid for the apartment building, so they're upside down. Like a leased car, they're upside down. So their only option is to either bring hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to the closing table or hand the keys back to the bank, which is just an incredible opportunity for us to walk in and say, okay, Mr. Banker, you go do your job, you go take care of whatever situation you got involved with. You think this building is worth X amount of dollars less, I'll buy it for that price. And that's what's happening right now. You can wipe away 20, 30, 40 years of equity. I mean, we're buying properties right now that sold for more money in 1970 and 1980 than in 2010. And it's not that the neighborhood is bad. It's not that the building fell apart. It's just that there's a problem in the banking system right now. And some people paid too much money for apartment buildings a few years ago. And some people, unfortunately, got hurt. Other people were doing it purposely to cash out and pull money out of the deal. And we'll talk more about that later. So there's a huge wealth transfer going on because the building's not going anywhere. So if the building's over here and the money's over here, I mean, it's just going to go back and forth. Will you please jump in? It's just going to go back and forth. What side do you want to be on? Be on the building side. Take the building now. Park it. Run it. Go away for a decade. Let it pay itself off. Live off of the cash flow.
Alan, do you see some people trying to bring those hundreds of thousands to the table, realizing they're going to really risk that, or they just walking away and nothing else in that situation?
Well, Michael, the question is, do people actually bring the money to the table to refinance? They do. They have to. They have to because for lots of reasons. I mean, if they lose that apartment building, then the bank's going to go after them personally because they signed on the note. So then they'll lose everything else.
A personal guarantee they did.
Personal. So those are the ones that personally guaranteed. There are ones that didn't personally guarantee, and it's a crime. You know, it's a crime. I'll give you a quick scenario. Let's just say I buy a building for $1 million, and you're the appraiser and Mark's the banker, and you give me appraisal for $2 million. Bought it for $1 million. You give me appraisal for $2 million. Banker wants to lend his friend money, maybe 80% loan to value, 1.6 million on $2 million appraisal. You take $600,000, you put it in your pocket. You run the building for a while, good intentions, and then the economy runs away on you, and then we have all these problems, and you read your paperwork, and it says, oh, non-recourse. I'm not responsible for this. So you literally will pick up your keys and walk over to the bank and say, this isn't for me. And you keep your $600,000. So trillions of dollars were stolen in this situation over the last 5 years, or 10 years, or 15 years. Game's up. Game is definitely up, which that game has made it that much more opportunistic for us. So yeah, we really haven't seen this kind of low pricing in apartment buildings. I mean, we're buying something today for approximately $4,300 a door. There's refrigerators and ovens in the units. The carpets are in good shape. The walls are in good shape. Yes, there's definitely some distressed situations that we need to fix, but how much cheaper do you want this to get? I mean, the land is worth more. Yeah, I'm $4,300 a door. It's got between 160 and 170 units. We'll talk more about that story, Angel Ridge, as well. So we're going to start really jumping into this now, but when do you get involved? I mean, a few years ago, prices were up here. You know, everyone's concerned. Well, does it go lower, or are we right here? So even if we're right here in the middle, I mean, at least you didn't buy up here, because some people that bought up here, they're surviving, they're cash flowing. They don't care. They don't care that their asset's worth half the price. Maybe they don't have to refinance. Maybe they have a 20-year mortgage on it or something like that. So they're okay. They're cash flowing. I mean, there were plenty of times in Los Angeles where real estate prices just dropped through the floor and people bought all the way up here, but they were cash flowing. Doesn't matter. So, so if you can buy here, you know you're not buying up here. You know you're in the middle or you're on the bottom. So it's time to buy. It's absolutely time to buy because we're sure as hell not at the high. You can't time this stuff out. At Pasadena here, at the Villas of Pasadena, I think we're renting here between like $400, $500, $600 a unit. Do the math. Let's just say $400 a unit, 30 days in a month. What's that, $12, $13 a day in rent? If people can't pay $13 a day or 60 cents an hour, I know that's nuts. I mean, where else do they go? The street. And the government's not going to let that happen. True wealth. True wealth because we're not recreating the wheel. You're just buying something that cash flows. So Angel Ridge, $4,300 a door. We're buying it this afternoon for $720,000. Some of you folks were with me last week at the auction sale down at the courthouse in Houston, Texas. I was working on this deal for 2 weeks. I actually spent a good $5,000 or $10,000 on my attorneys on this deal too, working with the other side. We came to an agreement. There were so many liens and so many legal problems with this 60 single-family house package that we needed it to be wiped out for most of the problems to go away. So we needed to go to foreclosure. In doing so, we struck a deal with the bank Monday night, 12 hours before the foreclosure, and I was to buy these properties from the bank for $335,000. I was going to show up with $300,000 cash which I put in an escrow account. I put it in an escrow account because here's the thing. This large bank didn't want to take any kind of ownership to this community. This community was upside down, vandals, dangerous things were happening, and you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar bank. They don't want to have their name on a property like this as a huge liability. So the idea for the bank was, we'll take it for 1 second because we have to, and then we're going to flip it to the buyer, to me. So we structured this deal. I put my $300,000 in an escrow account, and we wrote it all out, and they were going to lend me. They were trying to sell it for $600,000, and I told them I would pay $300,000, and they said, "Well, will you pay $335,000 and take back a note for $300,000?" And I said, "Well, that doesn't really add up." And they're like, "We know. If you pay $300,000 cash, and in 6 months you pay $35,000, we'll make the other $265,000 go away." So they get to write it down as a loss. Structured this whole thing out. We get to the courthouse Tuesday morning, and unfortunately, the bank offered the same exact deal to another buyer there, which I was very upset, because I had probably spent maybe near $10,000 to get to that point. And 5 minutes or 10 minutes before the auction, Sally was there, she was with me, I just decided that this person flew in from Los Angeles to buy these houses, and he was going to buy them. And he's done stuff like this before. So I was going to have to pay a lot more money for these houses. I knew he was probably going to, and he was going to get the same kind of deal, because any other person at that auction, I could have went in there and said, "I'll pay $600,000," because I had a $265,000 discount in my pocket.
Right.
So net to me, it was going to cost me $335,000. So that was like my secret weapon. And the bank double-crossed me, because they offered the same guy the same deal they offered me. And they thought they were going to drive us against each other to bid up the property. So all I can do is, I made the decision that there's no way I was going to outbid the guy. I decided to not play the game. And 5 or 10 minutes before the auction, I walked up to the auctioneer, the trustee, and I said, "I'm out. This isn't the deal I signed up for." So I didn't want to see the bank make an extra $100,000 or $200,000. Yeah. Right before our auction time, around 1 o'clock, we were all waiting for our paperwork to get brought to us from our attorneys, and he was waiting too, because all these deals were struck 12 hours before. And I was told, and I asked that question to the trustee, who was the representative of the bank that was selling the property. I said, "Did you folks offer him the same exact deal?" And they said, "Yes." They said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, well, then I'm not going to sit here and just bid this property up so you guys get more money. You know, maybe the guy that bought the houses, maybe he'll thank me one day, probably not." But here's what he did. I left. And so the minimum price was kind of $335,000. So he just said, "You know what? Screw this. I'm the only one here to buy this. I'm going to pay $300,001 cash. I'm not taking their funny note and all that crap. Okay? That's just some liability from a bunch of bondholders that might get mad one day and sue him." He said, "You know what? There's no one else buying this property. I'm paying $300,001, and he got the property. He got the property. So, true story, folks. $5,000 a house. I don't know how we just got off on this tangent, but that's what's happening right now. I mean, look at it. The bricks are worth, the roof, the foundation. There's a lot of work over there.
This was possible only because it was such a large portfolio. If you had broken this down, they would have been doing a lot better for these houses at the auction.
It's like selling them individually.
Yeah, because, who comes in with $300,000 cash,
Yeah. But, the bank wanted to get rid of everything. They just wanted to get it off their books. It was costing them a lot of money to maintain it. The city was going in there very upset.
Where was it?
Oh, boy. Acorn. It's not in a very pretty place.
Somewhere down south here?
Northeast.
No.
Northeast.
Would you remember?
Northwest.
Could the bank have taken it off the auction after they realized you were not going to play the game and they weren't going to get as much money? Could they have done that?
They could have. They could have, but they didn't.
Because he would have, this guy probably would have bid, because it was a good deal anyway. If
Yeah,
he
it's a
was
good
the
deal.
only one, he would have done it for 3,005.
It was a good deal. I wasn't prepared to.
Find it out with the guy. That's what it probably.
Well, I wasn't prepared. I didn't want to spend more than $5,000 or $6,000 a house. It would have cost more like $10,000 or $12,000 a house. Now these houses needed work. They probably needed like $10,000 to $15,000 a house. There's no air conditioning. They were copper strip. Does everyone know what copper strip is? So I mean, the sheetrock was wide open. So it needs lots of work, lots of security. It was a huge job, but sure, I'd buy $5,000 houses all day long, and I'm not in the single-family house business anymore. I mean, Tim would have a field day with stuff like this. Yeah, Tim would set up his radio station over there.
I'll send the other guy a bill for 34,000.
Oh.
Looking at what you're doing, so.
Okay. So yeah, I'm trying to get you excited and get you more involved. And I mean, I'm looking at another deal right now. It's like it's $20,000 a house for 102 houses. So a lot of these developers are running into problems. All right. So profiting in today's real estate. So one thing that's really exciting about apartment buildings that I had my aha moment around 2 years ago, I realized what took me 10 years to do in single-family houses, and that a lot of people out there are trying to do right now, you can do in 1 year in apartment buildings. I mean, the math is simple. I was making around $150 a house. So say I got 100 houses, $15,000 a month net. I make over $15,000 easily through my apartment buildings in 1 year. So we're trying to speed up time here where we all are in our life right now. And that's what I want to do for you folks too. It takes a long, I mean, single-family housing business, great business. I love it. I write about it. I teach about it. It just takes a long time to get to where you want to be with them. So, you know, you can speed up the process. You know, it's like folding time in half and matching up the dots or something. Speed up the process, get involved in apartment buildings, and, you know, start getting that cash flow quicker. And the equity, oh my gosh. So, yeah, you can imagine how much equity I have in 100 houses. We'll talk more about my houses later, but I don't have a single dollar in my houses. I bought them so cheap, I ran them so right, that I refinanced everything out, and I still cash flow them. I have debt on those houses, and I look at those houses like an apartment building, but the equity capture, I mean, even on Angel Ridge today, so just say we buy it for all in for around $760 with fees, $7,660, and just say it's a $500,000 rehab. Just say you're in it for $1.25 million on Angel Ridge. It's going to appraise for $2.5 million, and you know that's just a 5-10 minute transaction. One transaction, clean transaction, professional working people. It's just not somebody with a station wagon and you're waiting for some contractor to show up. You know, property management company, you work Monday through Friday, and you're not out there Saturday morning. So the apartment business it's a cleaner business. It's just a cleaner business. It's something, you know, I have a feeling everyone here is more comfortable doing.
When you go to refinance, what's the LTV at the bank? What's the max they're going to let you take out?
On
Angel Ridge.
Tough question. Okay, the question is, so if you buy it so deep, you buy it so cheap, you get this incredible deal, how much is the bank going to let you take out? Well, two things here. First of all, you got to figure out what the goal is. Do you want to take all your money out of the deal, or do you want to bank it, or land bank it so you can get some interest on your money? So do you want to have 6 or 7% debt on the property or not? For example, we're buying this property for all cash, no debt, while we stabilize this property. It's probably going to take around 12 months to fill it up and make it an absolute beautiful property. Then we bring in a bank. I'm hoping it's Freddie Mac, and we're going to get some kind of incredible, like 30, 40-year amortization schedule at maybe 3, 4, 5%. Sound realistic?
How many
30, 40 years. Yeah, they have some really good. Yeah. Freddie Mac. We're going to talk about Meadow Creek, which is something that I bought for around $425,000 and pulled out $700,000. So some banks will let you pull it out, some more cash, some banks won't. But I can tell you one thing that I know. It's really hard to pull money out of single-family houses right now. And it's a lot easier pulling it out of apartment buildings. I have another deal that just refinanced last week where we got 40% of our capital back.
You have to use part of that to rehab the thing, right? I mean, you're not really pulling it all out and just, having a holiday. I mean, you're...
No, but and that's what happened a few years ago.
Yeah.
But the one we're buying today,
Yeah.
we're going to rehab it for another $500,000 cash. So the idea here is
So where are you getting that cash? I mean,
we raised it all. You're sitting next to some of the investors right now. Okay, so huge equity and cash flow. So it's not just about how much cash flow you can get from this deal and then refinance and take all your money out. It's like, okay, debt equity. We'll call it debt equity. You have this $1.5 million equity position in the building. Do you pull it out and go buy the next property, or do you keep your debt really low and cash flow more? We all know I vote for the cash flow. I can bastardize just about any building I own because I bought them so cheap. But I bought them so cheap not just to make money on the equity buy. I'm buying it really deep and discounted. I'm making cash flow off of my cheap position. It was so damn cheap. I mean, let me give you an example. We're at the Villas Pasadena 76-unit building. This was the first apartment building I bought. My debt on this building per door is $140 a door. First $140 goes to the bank each month. Down the block, I bought a 162-unit building. The debt per door is $60 to $70. My note payment on this building is more money than on a 162-unit building down the block. And that was just an opportunity. Because this was a good buy, too. And I had no intentions on refinancing that one to pull out a few $100,000. Just keep the debt as low as possible per door. We'll go through this quickly. Advantages of multifamily house, multifamily apartment buildings compared to single-family houses. Time and efficiency, folks. There's just not enough time anymore. We all have our families, we have our kids, and I don't want to see you folks driving around to all your houses like I used to do. A virtual assistant, like I said, helps me do that. But more importantly, you can find all that money in one spot, and you're sitting in it right now. The cash flow, and it's more consistent. The cash flow. I mean, someone doesn't pay in a few houses, or the real fact is they're out there, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get to them when they don't pay on time. But at least when you're in your apartment building, someone doesn't pay. I'll show you guys later. I mean, we'll lock their door. We'll put locks. We'll lock them out. Or we can do landlord liens. We have the right to go into their apartment and take their stuff. So more advantages of apartment buildings over houses. OPM, other people's money. It's clearly easier to borrow money to buy an apartment building than it is a single-family house. Yes, absolutely, especially now. Especially now, because there's so much disarray and so much confusion in the single-family house right now. I mean, you got a block of houses. One costs $200,000, and then there's 3 foreclosures that are going for $30,000, $40,000, and banks are nervous. But they need to lend money, and there's an old saying, which is, the more you want to borrow, it's easier to borrow a lot of money than it is less money, right? It's easier actually to get a $2 million mortgage than it is a $100,000 loan. It's just the way it is. Bank makes more money. I'll tell you a quick story. At one point in my life, I moved to Venezuela for 2 years. And I came up with this really great idea that it was easier to manufacture soft soap in Venezuela than import and export it. So I set up shop. I set up a 10,000 square foot factory. And unfortunately, there was a coup going on in this country. And there was currency controls slapped on the country where you couldn't leave or come in with cash. And then there was price restrictions slapped on products where you couldn't raise your price, but hyperinflation was going through the roof. I mean, I saw inflation move 10, 20, 30% a month for a very long time. So I'm talking about, apartment buildings being inflation fighters. I mean, your dollar is really losing value. We're reading about it. You know, we're really losing value here. I travel outside the country a lot. Things cost a lot more. And as you can see right now, you know, you got to be brave to go into Central Market and Whole Foods in the same day. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of a new lifestyle for me. I mean, and then I got to go out to dinner the next night. Right? So, food inflation. I mean, things are really just costing a lot more money right now. So, you know, it's like, where do you put your money? Well, park it in a building, because the materials are going up in cost too. So, I mean, it costs a lot more money to build an apartment building today than it did 10 or 20 years ago, because most of the materials are going the other way in the world and not towards the United States.
Let me ask you though,
Yeah.
could you, I know we're talking about this, but in a real hyperinflation, could you really raise, you know, rents? You know, you can't just keep going up. I mean,
Well, let me tell you. So let me finish the Venezuela story. So I lived in a $100,000 condo that I rented in Venezuela. The question was, so if you find yourself in a hyperinflation environment, does it make it harder to actually raise money? And how do people actually afford to live in that kind of environment? So when I was in Venezuela, I lived in a $100,000 condo, and by the end of that hyperinflation period that I lived there, the condo sold for $300,000. And it wasn't that the condo was worth $200,000 more. It was hyperinflation. And so the people that left their money in their bank lost two-thirds of their money to thin air. The smart ones bought real estate. And that was really one of my first introductions ever into the world of real estate, when I saw that with my own eyes. People got destroyed. And yes, if it costs $300,000 to live in, yes, you'll find, I mean, it's just a fact of life. You'll have to find a job that pays you enough money to pay your rent. I remember, has everyone attended the Rich Club here? Our REAR Club? It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And I remember a speaker once came in and he took a poll of how many people actually own commercial real estate. And it was less than 2% of like 1,000 people. And it's so true. So when you get involved in apartment buildings, there's just so much less competition than the single-family house business that you'll speed up your wealth process quicker.
Do you have a reason why you think that's the case?
Yeah, because they don't attend my seminars. No, it's really, Michael, it's the intimidation of buying apartment buildings and thinking maybe it's the fear.
Lack of knowledge.
What do you think it is?
Lack of knowledge.
It really is. It's the lack of knowledge. It's kind of like a secret society. I mean, you walk outside and it's like, well, who owns that commercial real estate strip? Someone owns it, and nobody ever wants to talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of commercial real estate out there that someone's getting very, very wealthy off of it, and you don't know who owns it, and they decided not to, learn about apartment buildings, but they'll learn about single-family houses, I guess because they live in it.
Is it also a lack of money? Is it lack of...
No.
Lack of knowledge. I don't think it's a lack of money. I
Yeah.
think it's lack of knowledge. I know where to go to get money.
The Villas of Pasadena, this was an owner finance situation that I put $90,000 down. $90,000. I was controlling basically a $2 million asset.
Because it was owner financed.
It was owner financed. I cleaned it up, turned the situation around, and then I brought a bank in here, and we refinanced the owner out, and I got the note. So there's ways of doing this.
It's all about creativity.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, exactly.
You're limited by your own imagination.
Absolutely. I mean, could you imagine? So in Venezuela, to end the Venezuela story, I just the people who were really protected were the ones that protected their money and hard assets, which were gold, silver, and real estate. They got out of their currency. You know, my fear is the U.S. dollar it's getting destroyed, and we can all put our heads in the sand and pretend we don't understand the problem because it's so grand, or you can do something about it, and that's another reason why I'm here right now, because we're going to talk about this in one of my slides. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but where are you going to be in 2020? I mean, why don't you think about the next 9 years of your life? What's going to happen? What can you do right now to affect your life in 2020? Finding properties that provide cash flow in a crash is easier because prices are lower. So true. So true. The apartment building business right now, the prices are getting crushed. Crushed. And as they get crushed, it's easier to find cash flowing situations. Because if they weren't getting crushed, you'd be paying up here, and the cash flows would be less. I know a few of you heard me say this before. So let's talk about rate of return for a second, ROI. And, you know, so my houses, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a house. Here, Villas Pasadena, I paid around $23,000 a unit. They make the same amount of money. A unit here makes the same amount, well, more or less, makes the same amount of money as a single-family house. The maintenance on a house just can kill you. It costs a lot more. On Sunday, we'll drive over to some of my buildings. Some of those units are $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 a unit. They make the same amount of money as a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 investment in a house.
That's after repair value?
Yes.
Everything.
Yes. It's unbelievable. So,
Do you have somebody running all those houses? I mean,
yeah, well, my virtual assistant in England's running it. Interesting enough, this is kind of the main office for my houses. The tenants in the area love it. All my houses are in Pasadena, so all my tenants know they can come here. They can drop their money off in the drop box. If they want to talk to a real person, there's a property manager here. And I actually hired 2 full-time maintenance people around a half a year ago, and it's turning out to be the right decision. One's AC heat certified, and the other one's a plumber. And they're driving around to my houses. And when I'm not using them at my houses, better believe I'm putting them to work at the Villas of Pasadena. Yeah.
Apartments are a better deal than the houses. Why are you still holding on to your houses?
It's
sentimental value.
yeah. I get that question. Okay. First of all, I don't think it's a good time to be selling houses. Second of all, it's taken me so long to build $15,000 a month in cash flow. I mean, true, I guess I can go do that in the next few months in apartment buildings. But it's all in place, and it's all working. And my bet on the houses were, and still is, that I'm buying them so cheap. I mean, I just want to get to $100,000 a house level, where I think we will get to. The average value of my house is $75,000 per house here in Pasadena. It just has to be. $75 a square foot for concrete, roofing, and brick. The national average is like $125, $150. So I think all these houses will be worth $100,000 one day. So that's what I'm waiting for.
One day, many years from now, possibly. But
Right.
if you were to liquidate and turn it into
Right.
apartments, wouldn't your return be faster in that same time frame?
Yeah, but one thing you're not taking into effect, I have millions and millions of dollars of equity in those houses right now, not just the cash flow.
Yeah, you don't have any more.
So I've already taken this bet for the last 10 years, So what's a few more years? So
And you've already done the work.
I've already done the work.
You've already done the
And
work.
here's how I really fight that process, because you raise a great question. And here's how I don't spend more than 5 minutes a day on my houses.
I agree, but if you look at the numbers, it probably would work out better turning it into cash, but, is there some emotional attachment?
Are you an engineer?
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
We're talking about apartments. So
Yeah.
I don't we spoke
Yeah.
about it.
No, that's okay. I don't think I can move I actually skipped the slide. You know what? For you, I'm going to go back. There it is. I didn't even say it because I thought maybe you guys were getting a little bored with the house talk. It's easier to sell a 100-unit building than 100 houses. You know how much work I'd have to put into selling 100 houses in this unfriendly lending environment to people that can't qualify, that they should? Okay.
Buy your argument.
All right.
Another question. So
I won't skip any more lines.
You can owner finance.
Yeah, and I've tried that. Yeah.
So 100 houses, $15,000 a month cash flow. How many unit apartment buildings is that typically then? Cash flow.
Okay, so we'll get to this story, but I'll tell you right now, I own a building that cash flows $15,000 a month. One building.
How many units?
60 are online. 60 units. You know, we're going to get to some of my stories. I hope I don't end up repeating myself, but when you start looking, when you know what you're looking for, I mean, you're going to grab it. And I knew it. I just knew that was that one building. That was the building I told you, one broker, I was up on the roof with him, and he said, Alan, you're going to make so much money in this building, more money in this building than a 162-unit building. And he explained to me why. And, you know, it's a cash machine. It's a cash machine.
Broker total. Okay.
Yeah. I proved the numbers, but, yeah. So we're talking about cash flow, and just quickly, so it's sometimes when you buy a single-family house, you don't walk into a cash flowing situation. You got to turn the house around, you got to remodel it, and then you got to get a tenant. But it's very possible, and I have bought buildings that cash flow from day one. So I mean, it's an unbelievable feeling knowing you can buy a 34-unit building, and it makes money. It's a business. It's a business from day one. And of course, there's scale of economy in the apartment business. I mean, like we have 5 or 10 condensers ready to go in the workshop, or I have full-time staff here, maintenance people, AC people. They're all on the payroll, and it makes everything a lot more affordable. I can tell you, around a year ago, when we were experiencing those frosts in here, the freezing winter we had here, I was getting destroyed on heating costs on my houses to fix that stuff. Unbelievable. I mean, every other day I was losing a furnace, so do the math on the houses. It happens here too, but at least I have a staff, and I have that stuff in inventory, so I'm not subject to the market. I mean, you can imagine how much a AC heating company is going to sell a furnace for when it's 20 degrees outside. Okay. Let's just talk about inflation for a second, so we can kind of put in perspective where we are and how inflation can help protect you, or apartment buildings can help protect you against inflation. In 2000, an ounce of gold cost $282. 10 years later, $1,500. In 2000, a barrel of oil cost $25. 10 years later, well, yeah, $125 a barrel. And I said this before, but, you know, what are you guys going to do in 2020? What are you going to do different? So this is a silver dollar, and this is an American buffalo, or I should say a gold buffalo coin. Bought them a few years ago. This one cost around $500. Now they're going for around $1,600. And this cost around $10 to $15, and now they're going for $50 to $60. I'm saying to you folks, the same thing's happening with apartment buildings right now. So these are up by like two-thirds in value. Apartment buildings are down like two-thirds in value, and I think it's a cycle.